Hello and welcome everyone to your Radical Reboot Summit, how to reset your life through Ayurveda, authentic power and self-love. I'm your host for the summit, Robyn Lynch. I'm an educator at heart, and through my role as an Ayurvedic practitioner and wellness strategist, I help women who are stuck and seeking change to access the right tools to maximize their own vibrant health and to create a life of fulfillment, abundance and joy. But what I'm most passionate about and what this summit is really about is creating authentic personal wellness in all areas of your life, and through that being able to live a life of freedom. Our guest expert today is Nadia Marshall, Ayurvedic consultant, cook and writer. I've followed Nadia for several years and read her amazing articles and used her cookbooks, and I'm so excited to be able to share that with you and bring her knowledge to you. She absolutely unravels all the mysteries about Ayurveda and food. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about her by reading you her bio. Nadia Marshall is the director of the Mudita Institute in Byron Bay, Australia. She is an Ayurvedic food and lifestyle consultant, cook and health writer. After suffering from a restrictive eating disorder and activity disorder in her teens, Nadia had ongoing digestive problems and body image issues throughout her 20s, until Ayurveda changed her life. She has been living, breathing, researching and writing about its daily principles ever since for about 15 years. She is the author of 2 self-published books and runs retreats, courses, and a clinic with her husband, Ayurvedic practitioner Kester Marshall. Welcome, Nadia.
Thank you, Robyn. Thank you for having me.
So exciting to have you here today. I'm, as I said, I have followed you for a very long time. I love your writing. I love the way you make everything so simple. I love the way that you simplify Ayurvedic cooking, because as an Ayurvedic practitioner myself, I know the question I always get is, what do I, how do I cook? What do I do? So the topic for our discussion today is food freedom through Ayurveda. Enjoy your food again through an accessible approach to Ayurvedic nutrition and cooking. And that's certainly what we're going to find out from Nadia. So Nadia, would you start by telling us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, of course. So as it said in the bio, in my teens, I lost my way with eating. I always had a really strong desire and intention to look after myself and to be healthy. But being Vata Pitta and a little bit intense and perfectionistic and anxious at the same time, I went on my first diet and lost my way. I became a little bit too obsessed with it. And the qualities of the food themselves kind of contributed to that. I knew it wasn't right, so I recovered relatively quickly, thanks to a bit of help from my mum as well. But I then spent the next 10 years of my life searching for a better way, a good way to eat, and I tried loads of different approaches, but some of them would work for a little while, but none of them felt sustainable, and a lot of them continued to sort of support that holding things a bit too tightly, that kind of dry, astringent approach to my health. And so by my mid-20s, I really didn't have a good relationship with my food or my body. I thought about them all the time, but never in a very positive way, and I never got any joy out of them. And I knew that my metabolism was shot, my mind wasn't so good, and I was just searching for something. Luckily, in my wisdom, I thought, maybe naturopathy might show the way. So I was working as a speechwriter for a university, and I started studying naturopathy. Again, luckily, one of my very first assignments was on traditional medicine philosophies, and I did it on Ayurveda. And as I was reading about it, I thought, oh my goodness, this is it. This is answering all of my questions, filling in all of the gaps, and makes absolute sense at my very core, in my gut. So I promptly transferred into Dr. Ajit's course and started studying Ayurveda. And I knew I didn't want to consult, but I wanted to sort of combine my love of writing, my interest in food, with my love of Ayurveda. So that's kind of what I've been doing ever since.
That's perfect.
And changed my life.
Nadia, I love that that happened at 20, because there's a lot of people who are at 50 and 60 and still at that point, or you know, are at that point that you were at. So, you know, that's where your life journey is such a gift to us, because you get to share this for many years, which is fabulous, because there's so many people that need it. So in Ayurveda, we talk a lot about digestion, and we know that good digestion is paramount to great health. So what I would really like to find out for our community is how we can optimize our digestion through our diet. So this is one of my favorite topics. I was a school teacher of nutrition before I found Ayurveda, and just like you, I found that the contemporary ideas that I was teaching weren't working. It was one of the most frustrating things to try to teach these students about nutrition, but knowing that what you're teaching isn't working. So could you explain what is different about the Ayurvedic perspective to diet to the ideas that we're used to seeing?
From my experience, the real difference is, rather than looking outside of ourselves and asking, what should I eat to be healthy? Ayurveda asks us to look inside and start to feel into our digestion and get to know our belly, and ask the question, what does my digestion need right now at each and every meal? And even though Ayurveda is this incredibly vast, complex science, the things you need to know to be able to answer that question skillfully isn't that much, and it's stuff that makes a lot of sense. So that's wonderful and quite different about Ayurveda. But at the same time, you know, if you do have an imbalance or a particular condition or disease, Ayurveda has an incredibly specific dietary therapeutic approach that I think is kind of unparalleled in other traditions of medicine and other approaches. So I think that makes it quite different, and the effect that it has, not just on your body, but on your mind as well through your eating.
That's so fabulous. So from an Ayurvedic perspective, the big question, what should we eat? What should we eat?
We'd usually answer this question in about 2 hours, but I'll try and do it in about 7 minutes.
Okay.
If you want to know more, I am going to give away my book, which goes into this in a huge amount of detail. So that should help. So I'll just do a quick little recap of the Ayurvedic understanding of digestion. So when your digestive fire, we call it Agni in Ayurveda, is imbalanced, it can be imbalanced in 3 different ways. It can be too hot, too sharp, it can be too low, or it can be variable, like a fire blowing in the wind. So it's like when you're cooking on the stove. If your stove's up too high, your food's overcooked. If it's down too low, your food is undercooked. If it's blowing in the wind, again, your food is undercooked, and you're left with sort of a mushy meal. The same thing happens in our bellies. Some of this is eliminated, some of it's burnt up by our digestive fire, but if we have imbalanced digestion for a period of time, it accumulates in the digestive tract, hampers digestion further, ends up in the lower intestine, where it can make up a little home in the little pockets of the intestine and affect the gut biome, sort of encouraging nasty bacteria, and the desirable bacteria doesn't do so well. It can affect the gut wall, pass through the gut wall into circulation, and from there it can relocate into different parts of the body, and that's where disease can manifest. So from that perspective, looking after our digestion and keeping it balanced is really the approach to preventing all disease in Ayurveda, from the common cold to cancer. On the other hand, if our digestion is balanced, we have this beautiful flow of nutrition from the gut through to all of the tissue metabolism. It then nourishes all of our deeper tissues, our bone, our marrow, nervous tissue, our reproductive tissue, all the way through to the foundation of our immune system and the subtle elements in our body, our ojas, and it nourishes our mind in a completely different way. So balanced digestion is what we're looking at. When we talk about Ayurveda is about balance, it's very specific. We want to be working towards balanced digestion. So how do we do that?
What do we eat? When do we eat? And how should we eat?
So all we need to know are 2 things, really. That the whole of existence in Ayurveda is explained through 10 opposing pairs of qualities. And these are qualities that we can all understand and all relate to, because they're the first thing things that we learn when we're toddlers, like hot and cold, light and heavy, light and heavy, dull and sharp, that sort of thing. They're all qualities that we can relate to. And the other thing we need to know is that the law of like increases like. So when there are certain qualities in the environment and we're exposed to them through our sensory impressions, through what we eat, those same qualities are increased in our body mind. So all we have to do is look at what are the qualities of balanced digestion, and they are warm, light and slightly oily. So a fire, it's warm, it's light, and a balanced fire does best with a little bit of oil, like a candle or a ghee lamp. Wow. So when we look at our food, we ask the question, is our food warm, light and slightly oily? So in practice, I'm still talking. Sorry.
That's good. On. No, good. Keep going.
Yeah. So in practice, warm food, we're looking at predominantly cooked food and food that's cooked with herbs and spices that really help to warm up. Eating raw food's fine, but just in smaller quantities, because cooked food is much, much, much easier to digest and more bioavailable nutrients. We also want to avoid excessively heating and stimulating foods like chili, and we're wanting to avoid excessively cold foods, obviously. So ice cream, ice drinks. So drinking warm water helps enormously with this, encouraging the warmth in our digestive tract. And in terms of light, we're looking at predominantly vegetarian food because it tends to be lighter. So fruits, vegetables, lighter grains like basmati, buckwheat, amaranth, quinoa, that sort of thing. Lighter legumes that are easier to digest like split mung, red lentils, poi lentils I find are quite easy to digest. And there are ways that you prepare them to make them much, much easier for the body to assimilate. And then we're looking at not necessarily entirely avoiding heavy foods, but having them less often and preparing them in a way that makes them lighter and easier to digest. So we know what heavy food is because it feels heavy in our stomach when we eat it. So it's things like meat, dairy, wheat, eggs, cheese, yogurt, those sorts of things. And all of them can be prepared in a way that makes them lighter. So, for example, meat is best prepared as a soup, much, much, much lighter, or a casserole or a slow-cooked curry. Dairy is best as unprocessed as possible, and we want to bring it up to the boil and heat it up and cook it with spices. And wheat is a very heavy, sticky, difficult to digest grain, and we usually combine it with yeast, which makes it even heavier and stickier and more difficult to digest. So if we are having some bread, always toast it, makes it lighter, or preferably go for breads that don't have yeast in them, like flatbreads, or making your own chapatis and that sort of thing. So that's an example of how you can make heavy food a little bit lighter.
Fabulous.
Lightly oily food.
Lightly oily.
Just including some really good quality oils in our food, like homemade ghee. Best if it's homemade, because it's hard to get good quality ghee, and coconut oil, really good quality extra virgin olive oil, sesame oil, sunflower oil, macadamia oil. There are so many amazing, beautiful, stable oils that you can use in your cooking. It's wonderful. But then also avoiding excessively dry foods like too much raw food, too many salads, crackers, baked goods, processed cereals, that sort of thing. And also not going over the top with the oily. So don't go for deep fried foods, because that moves into the heavy category, and that's a bit too much. And finally, I forgot to mention that really the base starting point in Ayurveda is going for foods that are unprocessed, seasonal, organic and fresh as possible. And that's not even mentioned in Ayurveda because, 5,000 to 7,000 years ago, processed, microwaved, canned food didn't exist. So that's really the base starting point, which for me, that was a big leap for me, because I was a bit of a, low-fat, processed, highly processed, didn't do a lot of cooking, didn't know much about cooking, kind of girl. So just that step in and of itself was a huge difference for me. And finally, one more thing to mention is working towards a balance of the 6 tastes in our food, which you don't want to get too hung up about. It's just looking towards creating a bit more subtlety in our tastes, because a lot of our food, particularly from restaurants, tends to be really punchy in flavour, like really pungent, really salty, really sour, really sweet. And when you're cooking at home, it's just sort of dialing down all those flavours a little bit, so you're creating a bit more subtlety in your palate and in your body mind. Yeah. Whew.
Wow, that was great. And you know what I recommend to everyone? Rewind it and watch it again and write stuff down, because that is such fabulous information. You know, I've studied Ayurveda for years, and that is such a succinct little package of fabulous information that you're not going to get anywhere else. So listen to that bit again. That was so good. So that's what we should eat. When should we eat it? When should we eat the food?
Yeah. It's a great idea, whenever you can, to eat your food at similar times each day, within about an hour framework. This really helps to train our digestion, because it likes safety. It likes to know when food is coming, and when it knows food is coming, it starts to prepare itself. And when you're cooking at home, it's a little bit different, because just the smells and scents of the food cooking in your kitchen will get those digestive juices really flowing. But during the day, if you're just going straight from working like a maniac, running out, grabbing something, stuffing it in, it's a shock to your body. You don't have time for your digestion to get used to the idea. So if that's happening, then at least working towards having food at a similar time will help enormously. Also, digestive fire is most influenced by the biggest fire in the environment, which is the sun. So eating our largest meal in the middle of the day, or our heaviest meal in the middle of the day whenever we can, is wonderful. And as part of that, having a lighter meal in the evenings will really help a lot with your digestion, rather than going to bed with a belly full of food. You go to bed with a relatively light stomach, and as a result, you wake up in the morning feeling a bit lighter and fresher. And another thing that really helps as much as possible is eating in a relatively peaceful environment, because stress has a huge impact on digestion. So if you are working in the city and you have to go out and listen to me, the Byron girl, working in the city.
But you don't have to work in the city. You know, people are in Byron in their businesses, and they don't take a break for lunch. You know, so they're in their business and they're doing exactly what you're saying. You know, whatever business it is, and it could be a massage business. You know, it could be something that was kicked back, but they're still not taking that time out to actually sit and enjoy their food. Yeah,
absolutely. Take some time to take a few deep breaths before you eat. Just settle the agitation before you start eating will help a lot. And another thing to mention is not eating your next meal before your previous meal has been digested. So if you've had an enormous dinner and the next morning you're really not very hungry at all, skip breakfast and maybe take some stewed fruit into work and have it at morning tea time when your appetite is there again. Otherwise you won't digest the previous meal properly, and you won't digest the next meal properly, and you'll just create more armour going into the system.
And people how will they know that that's the case? What will they feel, Nadia, if they do that? How will they know?
Starting to feel into your digestion and into your appetite. So waiting until you're actually hungry here, not here, and eating then. Don't take that too far. Like, you know, people can easily latch onto ideas and get a bit fanatical about them and hang on to them too tightly. But just, you know, if you know that you've had an enormous meal with a chicken schnitzel and mud cake for dessert the night before, you're going to be a bit full the next morning. So have something a little bit lighter.
Perfect. I love that. Okay, so there's all these different diets out there, Nadia. You know, there's gluten-free, there's paleo, there's lactose-free, there's high-fat, there's the 5-2 fasting. There's so many different offerings of diet. So how can we find our way through the diet maze to work out what's right for us? Because, you know, a lot of them come across as looking fabulous. So, you know, how do we know that what to do?
Another good question. Well, I'm a bit of a weirdo. I'm constantly reading about different diets because I'm fascinated by them and the different approaches. And I think I try to look at them as objectively as possible, because I figure, there are a lot of people enthusiastic about them. So there's always something valid. There's always a kernel of knowledge there that's worth looking into. So that's what I try to do in my articles when I write about them. But the benefit of having a foundation of Ayurvedic knowledge is you can be sensible about it. You can see what the pros and the cons of the diets are, so that you don't get drawn into the shiny, bright, exciting thing that's helping everyone lose weight. But if you don't do that for a living, or you don't have time to do that thoroughly, or you don't know enough about Ayurveda, I would personally try and avoid going into that maze altogether and just focus on one thing. Like if you think Ayurveda might provide some answers for you, then just focus on that and work towards feeling into your body and your food and its effect on your body, which knowing more and more about Ayurveda will help with enormously. So I think the good thing about knowing something about it is your friends are going to be into different things, and it's difficult when you're having conversations with them. They want to know what you think. So read my articles, then you can get an idea of what they're all about quickly.
I was going to say exactly the same thing, Nadia. I was going to say, if you are thinking, well, or if you are already on one of those diets, just having a read about it and reading what some of Nadia's articles and as Nadia said, she really goes in and says, these are the things with this diet, like these are the valuable things, these are the things that have been researched, So she's certainly not saying they're bagging them and saying how terrible they are. She's very scientifically looking at them, and then how does the Ayurvedic perspective compare? So I would absolutely go and Google that, because Nadia's articles are fabulous. But if I wanted to lose weight, Nadia, because so many people that I see, that's one of their triggers, and women, and like you said, so many. I know just the other day a woman said, I couldn't be too thin. I could never be too thin. And there's that thing about, you can never be too thin or too rich. So if someone did want to lose weight, how and what should they eat, or what should they do?
This is the beauty of Ayurveda for me, because my weight used to yo-yo quite a lot when I was trying out different diets, and the panic when the weight started to come on and just not knowing what to do next was terrible. So with Ayurveda, it's so simple, because when we're gaining weight, the quality that is increasing in our body is heaviness. So all we need is the antidote. We need to eat more of the light foods and cut out some of the heavy foods. We definitely should eat soups at night. Just try that. It's incredible. And drink warm water during the day. That will have a huge impact, and work towards having that biggest meal in the middle of the day. If you want to lose weight a little bit faster and you don't have a light ethereal constitution, you have a bit of groundedness to you and you can gain weight easily, then you can even incorporate a little bit of Ayurvedic intermittent fasting, and maybe work towards skipping dinner a couple of times a week. I don't do that because I have more of a Vata constitution. So another thing I do if I want to sort of kickstart a bit of a weight loss process is I'll do a 3-day cleanse where I just eat khichdi and vegetables and mung dal and stir-fried veggies and fruit for a few days, and that's wonderful. And then just eat lighter food for a little bit longer. But the thing about Ayurveda is because you're kind of maintaining a good weight most of the time, because you're looking after your digestion, you just don't really need to do that very often, and it's a very subtle tweak. So maybe your jeans feel a little bit tighter one week than they did the week before, so you just make a really minor adjustment of having a few more soups and following things a little bit more strictly, and not eating your cookies in the afternoon, and you come back into balance quickly. So you don't have these huge swings that you feel out of control about all the time. You can just make these little minor adjustments, and you feel it in your digestion. You want to do it because your digestion feels so much better when you do that. It's really, you actually want to stay on track, rather than.
That's such good advice. So in my clinic and through the people I work with, I see a lot of mothers, and once you start talking about Ayurveda and they go, yes, I want to do this, but you've given me all this information and I don't know what to cook. And not so much I'd be fine if I was just cooking for me, but I need to cook for my family is what they tell me. How do we cook in Ayurveda for everybody's needs?
Yeah. Well, when a lot of people start out in Ayurveda, they can go down the Vata Pitta Kapha food list road, and that can get very, very confusing very quickly if you have a dual constitution, let alone if every single person in your family has a dual constitution that's different to yours, right? So that you'll freak out and you'll give up very quickly. But, so that's the beauty of focusing more on digestion and the warm, light, slightly oily qualities, is because these qualities won't aggravate any of the doshas. Vata is aggravated by things that are too cold, too dry, and too light. Pitta is aggravated by things that are too hot, too light, and too oily. And Vata is aggravated by things that are too cold, too heavy, and too oily. So if you're having that lovely, subtle, moderate, warm, light, slightly oily with the subtle flavorings, you're not going to put any of the constitutions out of balance. And you can, as you get to know more, you can tweak things a little bit more. Say you just cook a lovely vegetable casserole with some rice for the family, and someone in the family has exams coming up and they're super stressed and they've got a Vata constitution. You can just give them a little bit more ghee on top and maybe some salt and a squeeze of lemon, because that will pacify Vata. If they're Pitta constitution and they're getting a bit intense and they're quite hot and they've got the heat rash, just adding more cilantro or coriander to their meal, maybe a little drizzle of coconut milk. So, you can start using condiments as a way of tweaking that, but don't do that to begin with, because again, you'll freak yourself out. So start with digestion, start with true doshic meals, and see how you go. And I wanted to mention that Dr. John Douillard has a great book called Perfect Health for Kids, which I think in our clinic has helped a lot of parents know how to work with kids and fussy eaters, because he's got lots of kids. So he's had a lot of experience in that realm.
That's so good. That's such good information. I just want to ask you quickly about the herbs. So there's a lot of herbs used in Ayurvedic cooking. Does everything we eat have to be a curry? And why are the herbs important?
The herbs and spices are amazing. Spices like cumin, coriander, fennel, turmeric, ginger, cloves, garlic, and herbs like cilantro or coriander, basil, thyme, sage, oregano. These are things that have been used for thousands of years as digestive medicines, and that's why they are culinary herbs. It's not just because they taste amazing, it's because they have a profound effect on our digestive health. So, wars used to be fought over them, and countries were colonized because of them, and trade routes were established because of them, and they used to be used as currency. Like, we used to know their value, but now we kind of take them for granted. So it's really wonderful just starting to use a few different herbs and spices, and they don't have to be, ones that you think of as being Indian, which most of them are never just one culture. They are throughout all cultures, but ones that you are familiar with and you'd like to get to know a little bit better, and start using them consistently in your meals, and you'll have a real cumulative digestive effect. And no, not everything needs to be curry, because the principles of good digestion are kind of inherent in all traditional cultures. We only really can go awry if the tastes are really, really strong, because sometimes that's appropriate in certain climactic situations and maybe not in ours. So that's what we've done in our warmth cookbook, is we've tried to have a variety of different cultures and lots of different types of meals, so people know it's not just curry. And we've made them subtle enough that they're still tree doshic. Having said that, once you know how to cook a really good khichdi and a really good dal, you're going to want to eat a lot, don't you think?
Right. Absolutely, I agree with you completely. So another thing that often comes up is that there is a sweet or a salty craving that comes up in the afternoon. So why is that, and is there anything we can do to change this?
This is the beauty of Ayurveda again, it kind of explains everything. So at that time in the afternoons, the sun's going down, the atmosphere changes a little bit. It's moving from, the middle heat of the day down to the sunset. So sort of from 3 till 6, that atmosphere changes. It becomes a little bit ethereal and magical. It's a Vata time of the day. So as a result, we feel a little bit lighter, and our nervous systems get a bit of a kick, and we start craving grounding. And the tastes that ground us the most are actually sweet and salty. So the intention is correct that we all have, but maybe we're just choosing the wrong things. So if we're choosing refined sugar, that will actually aggravate Vata, even though it's sweet taste is quite aggravating. Or we're choosing really strong stimulants, they will also aggravate Vata. So the intention is good, but maybe we're not choosing the right things. So I would say the best things to do are, whenever you can, create sort of breaks in the momentum of your day, so that your Vata is less aggravated to begin with, and then the cravings won't be as strong. If you're eating in this way we've talked about, with the warm, light, slightly oily food, that will help to pacify your Vata as well. But in the moment of that craving, don't feel bad about the craving, because we can't fight the atmosphere, but just make a better choice. So maybe choosing unrefined sweet, maybe some sweet fruit, or doing something that will also help to pacify your Vata. So going for a slow walk, taking 10 deep breaths, if you can, having a little lie down with your feet up the wall for 5 minutes. If you had a dream. I used to have my own office. So I'd close the blinds, lie on my desk, and have a 10-minute power nap in the afternoons, and it made it so much more effective for the rest of the day. But obviously you can't all do that.
No, but it's a good thing to know. So all right, that's great information. Now, is there really anything wrong? So many people, we've got the huge coffee culture going on out there. Is there really anything wrong with coffee in the morning, or through the day, and is there an alternative to get us going, for the people that are relying on that?
Well, first of all, coffee, my husband always teaches that coffee isn't brilliant for women in particular, because it has a lot of things in it that need to be broken down by the liver and are seen as poison for the body. So the liver kind of prioritizes breaking those things down, rather than breaking down our incredibly complex and ever-changing hormonal system, where we're having to pull hormones out of circulation, rebuild new hormones, put them out into circulation. So if we're drinking a huge amount of coffee, particularly towards perimenopause and menopause, it's not great. But I guess the reason why we're looking for that stimulation in the mornings is because at the Ayurveda conference last year, Professor Mark Cohen gave this wonderful talk about how all of us are just moving through this state of searching for stimulation, then stamina, and then sedation at the end of the day. So we're looking to rev ourselves up in the morning, keep ourselves going through the day, and then try and switch ourselves off before we go to bed. And we're kind of using coffee, refined sugar, and alcohol or TV to calm ourselves down at the end of the day. So I guess we want to work towards calming down that cycle a little bit, again, with those moments of breaking that freaking avalanche of momentum throughout the day by just taking a few deep breaths between each email, doing whatever we can to slow that down, driving more slowly, speaking more slowly, just slowing down maybe 10% in everything that we do will help calm that cycle down a little bit. But we're going to do it one way or another, aren't we? We're going to search for those things. So again, it's looking at swapping them out with things that might be more appropriate. So his talk was on Tulsi tea, which actually provides all of those things. It provides stimulation, stamina, and sedation all in the one drink, whilst also being an adaptogen. So it's incredibly good for helping the body cope with the stress of daily life. So that's a good alternative. Right. But if you are going to have coffee, have it with full cream milk, because that will tone things down a little bit, and maybe a sprinkle of cardamom helps to reduce the toxic effects of the caffeine. Yeah. And also castor, my husband always suggests in clinic, so he's had a lot of experience with this too, get clients to have a different ritual in the morning, because it's partly the ritual of it. So having a ginger tea with honey and lemon in the mornings instead, and just saying, I'll have my coffee at 10. And he's found that rather than sort of going from 0 to 100 first thing in the morning and taking off from there, it just helps to give a little bit more of a gentle start to the day. And then by 10, clients have reported quite often they're not craving it anyway.
Wow.
So that can be a simple thing to try.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Okay, so we've got to finish up, but because we're getting to the end. What do you come back to, and what do you go to in Ayurveda?
For me, whenever I feel like I'm, off the rails a little bit or losing my way a little bit, I just always come back to cooking, because as soon as I cook for myself, it improves the digestion in my belly, which in turn improves the digestion in my mind. I make better choices, I have better clarity, I instantly have a better routine, I'm usually a little bit less stressed, and just the quality of the food that I'm eating helps me to become warmer and kinder towards myself. It helps me to be a little bit lighter and more buoyant emotionally, and it makes me softer and more flexible, so I'm kind of a bit more capable of dealing with life. So those three qualities, they affect my belly and my mind, and cooking is the thing that does it all. So just coming back to home cooking as much as possible is definitely my go-to. Yeah.
Right. And so my last question, and you might have just answered it, but is one that I'm asking everyone. If you were going to give one tip for radically rebooting your life, what would that one tip be?
It would be cooking. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Starting small. Don't freak yourself out. Just start with, say, one meal, master that, then another one, master that, one at a time. If you're a super gung-ho person, that might be annoying, but it is, in many ways, it's the answer to everything. All your questions about food is home cooking for yourself with these beautiful spices.
Well, in light of that, the free gift that Nadia is sharing with all of us is a free ebook copy of Nadia's book, Living Ayurveda, a practical guide to Ayurvedic nutrition and deeply nourishing your body and mind. And that has recipes in it, Nadia?
That doesn't. It's more the how-to. But on our website, we've got a little giveaway on our website as well, which is my top 10 favourite Ayurvedic recipes. So that could be a good place to start.
Yeah, and I can absolutely recommend those. I love Nadia's recipes, all of them. And she's also got some good little sweet treats for the afternoon if you're a bit stuck and you're thinking, I need a bit of grounding. Absolutely fabulous. So wonderful. I just love the way that you bring Ayurveda in a common sense way to everybody, Nadia. It's so great, and the food question is huge. It is what we all need to start with. So to answer that is so important, and you've done it so well. So thank you so much, Nadia, for your time today. It's such a powerful session, and I just wanted to finish with a quote from Nadia. This is her thinking is, and this is her philosophies about Ayurveda. The beauty of Ayurveda is that it brings us back into a relationship with not only our food, but also our bodies and our mind. That the qualities of the food itself quietly transforms the qualities in our minds without us really having to do or face anything head on. And that sounds really a great way to start. So thank you again, Nadia. Thank you so much. And thank you to our community who have come and watched this today. And I know that you would have got so much out of it. And I hope that all of you now will be able to take one step more towards radically rebooting your life. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Robyn.
Thank you.